just a minute here. And pop out chat. And then we hit enter here. And enter here. And here. Yay. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. Yes, you too, Furball. For those of you watching after the fact, don't forget the whole like, subscribe, bell icon bit, and you keep up. Photon does outstanding work, and this is Carlton. Insane kitty. Very lovey kitty. Ugh. Furball. Come on. Get you down. No. Okay, get down. Alright. Hello, Michael! Just as a comment, took me all day to finally get a second one of these daggum things assembled properly, and then after I did, I realized I should have probably had this hand at a different angle. Oh, frickin' well. I finally got them sorted on a tray table over here. But anyway, so my original plan for this evening was I was going to make a ballista, as part of the whole War Machines thing. And then one of my patrons popped up and said, "Oh, mate, I can make it in the evening." So, LuchadOrc. A LuchadOrc. Indeed. Oh, actually, I gotta make a comment real quick. And the copy. And by the way. Anyway, so we're making a half-orc Luchador monk. Kind of in the inspired by El Tiburon or Los Tiburon, whichever one it was, which is a rather famous story. If you go to 1D4chan, not 4chan, 1D4chan, and look it up, you'll find the story of a Luchador half-orc monk who won his fight. What a fight it was. But we're waiting on, I believe his name is Andy now. Now the funny thing is, there's usually an extra or two when they give you boxes like this that are trays like this full of baggies. And the instructions for this, for all intents and purposes, are 1/4 scale photographs, or 1/3 scale photographs. I mean, come on. Really? There's a 1/2 scale photograph on the front, or maybe about a 2/3, but that's only of a few of them. So, yeah. That's all the instructions they had. Like I said, normally when they do that, there's a couple extras. What extras did I have this time? I had an extra gun and hand with a grenade. And that's all I had extra. Assuming that each one of them gets one of these little grenade bandoliers hip pouch, and keg. Anyway, that's beside the point. That's just me still griping about the way they packaged the miniatures for that particular unit. And really and truly, the only reason I bought them was to paint them, because I don't play the game. So, I've got another furball staring at me now. What are you doing? Ralph? Ah! What do you think you're doing, little fur butt? What do you think you're doing? So, we're waiting on our patron so I can get started on sculpting his LuchadOrc. His LuchadOrc. LuchadOrc half-orc, really, I should say. And one of the advantages of making these figures the way I do is that making a half-orc is pretty darn easy. I go to orc, and I only go part way up. You know, if you want them to be more human-like, tend them more towards about 30% orc. If you want them to be more orky, like 50, 60, 70% orc. And if you want them full-on orc, then just make them an orc. And of course we got Gazita's wares if you had the coin. Did you just say that? Gazita did nothing. Gazita's just sitting on the back of this chair. What do you think you're doing to Gazita, scratching his back? Yes. Oh, that is Gazita's tail. You mind? I need to put you down now. On the floor. On the floor you go. Down. Down. Ralph? Get down. Yeah! Get the kitty. There you go. Okay. Still waiting? Okay, here we go. The patron is about 10 minutes late, and he's at his computer in just a moment. Excuse me. Oh. So when he gets here, we'll get into just kicking it on the LuchadOrc. She does. He often does. They actually very often do, scary enough. I mean, how many times have you been watching me sculpt, and I'll look down, this thing, I just reach up, and she hops up here. Don't you, little baby girl? Yeah. And of course, I'm being stared at by a Carlton, so the minute I turn to him and ask him to come up, he probably will. But then I won't be able to get him down for a while. Okay. Do not forget the greatest print of them all. Something I use every single day, and has lasted me for almost 2 years now. Basically, as long as I've had the CR10, because that was one of my first CR10 prints. I made the original version on a really bad printer, and when I got the new one, I made that version, and it's so much. Okay. So, I realize that I'm at 720. That's because, well, this is not my video card won't handle anything higher than 720. what I can do is I can go ahead, and while we're waiting on him, I can just go ahead over here and pull a Thanos. There we go. This is a rather muscular half-orc. Got a little bit of a hunched back, the slightly orky face, and if we really wanted him to be orky, didn't want to be orky at all, but you notice we'll have to probably modify the position and size of the tusks when we shift him. But yeah, this is our half-orc. This is what we are going to turn into a luchador. There we go. That's what he needed to hit. And we are waiting on our person. And he didn't answer my question. Okay. Now, one thing I did not know when I got this particular unit is that of the 10 or so figures that came in it, 3 were actually female Trollkin. Interesting. My problem is I've got problems with Trollkin as a whole, and that's they have their tribal force, their primitive tribal force having shotguns and Gatling guns. I mean, their shotguns I can kind of understand because the way they look, they're kind of like, well, kind of like blunderbusses with axes. You know. But Gatling guns? And they mount them on the back of giant trolls and have the little trollkin going. The big trolls are going. Gatling guns in a tribal arrangement. Schizotech, the difference between a blunderbuss or a handgun, which these actually look like handguns because they look like small cannons tied to pieces of wood, and you're talking about a 7th century difference. That's like a soldier being drawn on the battlefields of World War II, holding the control scheme for a drone in one hand, and a freaking rapier in the other. And that's actually not even as far apart. It'd be like a soldier on the battlefield of the 30 Years' War, wearing a helmet from the Norman invasion, and carrying a Kentucky long rifle from the Revolutionary War. Hello, Mr. Gardner. Hello. Ready for your LuchadOrc? Or is this going to be another scenario where in between the time you came up with the idea and the time I'm actually sculpting it, he got squished by a giant? Okay. First of all, do you have a name for him? Or is it just the LuchadOrc? Max. His name is Max the LuchadOrc. Got it. Next, before we do anything else, I need to know what base type you want him standing on. And I mean this. I mean, the one closest to my finger here and the one on the far opposite side in the top row are sci-fi techno. The rest of them can be kind of just, whatever. And then there's also this one. Has a couple techno grills for him to stand on, but also has like cracked earth, gravel, ancient tile, magic circle, which doesn't sound right for a Luchador. So, the wood planks. Okay. That's all I need to hear. That seems to be one of the more common and more popular versions. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pop into here. And once again, we have our basic half-orc with some muscle added. And I'm going to ask you, okay, do you want him to be less muscular, and do you want him pot-bellied? Do you want him almost cartoonily big? Little bitty legs? Do you want him built like a modern human bodybuilder like this guy? What sort of proportions do you want him to have? So pretty much like this guy. I mean, I can make him a little bit bigger, just to show you what I mean. Where is it? I can make him really big, like Incredible Hulk big. But that doesn't really sell as well. Or I could, reduce the musculature. Somewhere in between. So about here. You want him to have a more realistic proportions or more stylized proportions in terms of the size of the hands and the head and the feet? Well, I need to bring that work just a little bit. There we go. Oh, he'll have strong definition when we're done. I do need to do one thing to make him a bit more Luchador-y. I need to narrow the waist a bit and narrow the hip a bit. Okay. Okay, now, do you have a pose in mind for our Luchador? And finally, the only thing that would be visible on the figure before we start adding sculpture to him, does he have a cape? If so, how long? Does it have a collar? Is it off to one side or the other? No cape. Okay. Gloves would just simply be more detail around the forearm, and maybe some little details on the knuckles and the back of the hand. Most of this will be surface detail. So, do we have a pose for our Luchador? Like this, like that, like that. You know, where is he pointing? Is he looking where he's pointing, or is he like, get him, man? Yeah. Um, I got super glue over my hand and I was peeling it off, and apparently some of it ended up over here. Pointing straight ahead, or is he looking to the side and pointing? Okay. What we're going to do then, we're going to go ahead, go to poses. We're going to start from this pose, but we're going to change it. Okay, this pose was for another figure. This gives us a lot of dynamism to the body, as well as to the legs, while keeping it still static. But we're going to zero out this arm. And from selected, select them all. Parameters, all. Twist of 0. Side to side of 0. Bend of 0. And then we're going to take this right here, and we are going to kind of point it up a bit more. He's going to, I'm going to close the hand, and he's going to be pointing, I'm going to be making the point with another tool in ZBrush. Okay, so you want this hand on the hip, correct? Okay, about 45 degrees. So right now he's side to side. What we can do is we can simply take our chest and abdomen and twist them a bit. And then side to side them just a little bit to kind of cancel out that twist. And then side to side the head. The neck needs to be a bit, actually let's undo that because we need to do it from the head. About like that. And then that might be a little bit too much side to side on the yeah. Now, let's see. We're going to go back to our poses because we need to have a left fist. Okay, then we're going to twist this down. And one thing else we're going to do, we're going to kind of okay, now he's a little bit too far forward, so what we're going to do is we're going to take each of these feet, we're going to pin the translation and rotation. We're going to make sure that the lower legs don't bend side to side because that'll ruin the immersion. We're going to click the hip, and we're going to oh, whoa, no. No. There we go. That's a lot better. Okay, so how does this look, assuming that we are going to be... let me go ahead and unpin all. Assuming that we are going to be pulling that finger out, how does this look for his pose? Okay. And we're going to file, import, and we're going to import the base from, where is it? Base planks. There it is. Going to a front view first. And then we're going to move it about there. Then we're going to a perspective view so we can make sure that it's not too far forward, and it is too far forward, so we bring it forward, or bring it back. Okay. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to hide the planks and the tusks. Arm be higher, okay. We're going to pull it up a little bit this way, and a little bit. Also, I need to make sure that actually you can come this way a little bit. Shinju. Okay, so how's that? Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to export this. We're going to, not to blend shapes, to Patreon minis, new folder, LuchadOrc. Lucha body. Accept. Hide it, and then we make the tusks visible. The reason for this is DAZ Studio exports everything visible. And we don't always want that. Like, we want these to be separate pieces, really, in ZBrush when we get to them, especially this. Lucha base. And then we cut over to ZBrush. We're going to import meshes, Resculpt Minis, Patreon, new LuchadOrc, Lucha body first. And before we do anything else with this guy, there's two things we need to do. First, we need to go into that mouth and bring it out of it, because that's just too far back for a humanoid mouth under most circumstances. And by hitting the shift key as we go over back and forth over it, we're smoothing it out, which for all intents and purposes means it's evening up with the polygons on the side of it, which brings it forward and makes it less deep in the back of the head. Okay, frame out. The next thing is we're going to pull this finger out, and it's going to be ugly. It's going to be very, very tricky, very, very eh. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to hide this thumb. And then we're going to move topological. We're also going to turn on this button right here. Remember draw size per brush. Now this is very, very, very crude. We're just kind of dragging bits and pieces of this finger off. And then we're going to hit smooth. Because it's right now inside out. Now, we're going to hit with inflate, but we're going to have to break out the Wacom tablet. Now, the reason we had to do it this way is because when I rigged this figure, I expected 99% of the poses to have an open, closed, or kind of tilted hand. I didn't expect pointing. Now, we're going to reduce that intensity quite a bit because we want to be very careful, like right here. No. Okay, now we're going to go back to move topological, make it a bit bigger because we want this to move most of the finger up. Okay. And there we have our pose finalized. To the warning that this may not print well on FDM. Now we're going to subdivide it to about 1.4 million. And we're going to Dynamesh at 768. Dynamesh. Undo the Dynamesh, and then we're going to zoom into the mouth again and finish up a couple of little tweaks there. Actually, we should not have done that yet because there's one other thing we need to fix. We need to make this more like pants and less like a naked booty. Plus he is a wrestler, so he'd have a large booty. Alright, now we're going to Dynamesh it. Oh, Dynamesh it at 768. And we're going to smooth out the butt. So that way we can later make it into tights and not a naked booty. Okay, now we're going to zoom in and shrink out these last couple little tiny details in the center of the mouth. Okay. Now, let's smooth out this area here because that's actually an artifact from the morph. And we're going to do we're going to import the tusk and base. Import tusks. And import Lucha base. And these will not be affected by the rest of what we're doing, because we're going to be doing stuff just because. Alright, we're going to regular move this time. We're going to make it a little bit bigger. And we're going to grab the corners of the mouth and, I said corners of the mouth, and pull them out to really emphasize the presence of these tusks. Now the tusks actually look like they're part of his mouth. Let's go ahead and hide this, because we've got to do the most important thing for any Lucha. We've got to design his mask. I need to be here. What we're doing is we're hiding bits and pieces here, so we can then mask. Control-Shift-I. We go to masking, inverse, visibility, hide point, frame. There. That is our Luchador's head, easily framed. And now we're going back to the move topological brush. Oh no, we're going to the standard brush, just because it's currently very, very small. Control, when we're bringing the focal shift over, lets us mask off. Pun not intended. Do you want his ears poking out of the mask? I would suggest it. Okay. Now what we do is very simple. I hold down Control and I draw on the shape of the mask. You have to be very careful right around here. Alright, no. We're going to have it come around the mouth like this. We're also going to come around under the nose. Again, classic Luchador. And just above the tip of the nose. And then we're going to draw on our eye holes. I would assume this could also be used for a lot of supervillain superhero games. You can make yourself a Luchador, a monstrous Luchador character, either as a villain or as a hero. I've been in entire campaigns where it turns out everybody designed their character to be, well, see, he's a good guy, but he's kind of monstrous, so everybody thinks he's a bad guy. No. Okay, and then I'm going to bring this around to the wrinkle on the side of the mouth, and then just kind of bring it straight down. Then bringing this around. Okay, and then just link this back around from in the back of the head. And now we fill this all in because we have drawn our outline for the mask. Detailing can be done in a little while. We also need to make the mouse a little bit bigger just to cover a little bit more area as we fill it in. One of the things that we'll be doing later is that we will be adding on like the lacing on the back of the mask. But this is just to get our basic geo for it. I would also suggest a bare chest. Does he have a championship belt or not? Because is he champion Lucha or not? Actually, let's go ahead and... Now, we go down to Subtool, Extract. We extract at 0.02, but we're not going to do it at double because there's issues. Alright, we do that. That's too high. So we change this to 0.01. Accept. And there we have our mask, and that looks good on this scale of figure. We're now going back up to the dude, drawing on. There's our LuchadOrc mask. Okay, we're going to detail that mask in a little bit. Before we do, we're going to go ahead and we're going to Dynamesh it at 512. Because we want to keep it as sharp as possible. And then this is 29,000. We can go ahead and give it another 2 levels of smoothing. Okay, we're going to hide the hand here. Oh, yeah, this one. We're going to hide the hand here. And the fingers. And this arm. So that way we have the waist available to us for painting on the mask for our championship belt. Now, it's still a bit, we can go ahead and get by with a bit larger. Typical championship belt is here, is where the buckle would be. Gonna go a little bit large. And then we're going to bring it down this way. And then back up this way. And then the same thing here. We're going to bring this down this way. And back to here. We're going to make the mouse a little bit bigger. And then we're going to bring it around behind him. And that will be where our belt is. This is going to be doubled, and this is going to be 0.02. Accept. Okay, hold on just a second. I have a minor, a very minor thing to take care of real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Let me go ahead and pop back in here. Yeah. Okay, so this is where our belt is. We can go ahead and make the arm visible again. Now with the belt, what we're going to do something slightly different. We're going to zoom in on the belt. We're going to polygroups, and we're going to auto group. Okay. Now we're going to stroke curve or curve functions frame node. And what this did, it's hard to tell, is it added curves on the edges of everything. We go from here to curve tube. We shrink the mouse down a bit. We're going to add trim to the belt. Now we're going to just simply go to unsub tool. We're going to go to split unmasked parts. We're also then going to click here, turn off the loops. Here, we're going back to move topological, making it a little bit smaller. We've got to drag this into the hand to represent the fact that it is not actually ending there, but continuing on around the belt. The same thing applies here. You grab that and pull it like that. Actually, inflate. We're going to inflate this right here. And then move. Move topological, yeah. Okay. Go to the belt. We're going to grab this area here and pull it in. Once again, to make sure it doesn't have a seam when we go to blend everything together. Frame. Now that trim, we're going to go ahead and subdivide it a little bit. And now we can merge down the belt and the trim. So there's our belt. There's our belt. Okay. My first suggestion would be elbow and knee pads. The kind that you see, you know, like what skateboarders would wear, but that some pro wrestlers wear. We'd also assume that he's wearing tights below the belt, not his own little personal underwear. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, we're going to orb cracks 2, really small, turn off lazy mouse, and make it kind of deep. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut it there, because that's going to be where the belt buckle is. Okay, now the way we're going to do this is the same way we just did everything else. Now, one of the first things we got to do, however, is smooth out the bend here. So we're going to hit Shift and hit the smooth brush on this, and then I'm just going to tap the number 1 on my number row. 1, 2, 3. There we go. That does what I needed it to do there. We're also going to inflate a little bit on the back of this forearm, because when you bend the hand like that, you warp the... Okay, there we go. Let's give it a little bit of a bulge back here. And smooth that a little. Yes, anytime you hit the number 1 on your number row, it repeats whatever it was you last did. Yeah, that forearm is looking a lot better. Now, we're going back to a standard. We're going to shrink it a little bit again. And we're basically going to select a section of it, like this. Then we're going to upright the forearm. And again, select a section of it really close to the elbow, like that. Actually, let's erase that, because that didn't do right. We need it about here. There we go. These are the strings for the, then we're gonna, straps for the pads. We're going to do something similar with this arm, but it's going to be a lot simpler. We're just going to select across the elbow and then deselect about there. Actually, let's do it a little bit. And then, yeah, let's... Oh. There we go. Frame out. And we're going to do that same thing to the knees. We're going to draw... Whoop. Draw where the pad would be. And then deselect... Oh, no. Deselect. There. Okay, there we go. Not quite yet. There. Okay. That's going to be the pads. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and extract them. Accept. Draw. It may look a little thick for their purpose, but details tend to not do well at this scale. You actually have to exaggerate the details. Now we're going to take inflate. We're going to make it a lot bigger. And we are going to Dynamesh first at 256. And then we're going to kind of gently inflate over the padded area. Make them actually look like pads and not just... One, two, three. Frame. Yeah, now they look like pads. Again, we have not detailed them yet. This is just getting the geometry in place. We're going to subdivide it a couple times. And now, the boots. We need to do something with the boots. Okay, boots up the shins. Alright, so all we got to do then, we go here. And... oh, click there. And then we go down to geometry. And modify topology, delete hidden. No knee pads. Now boots, how far up the shin do you want the boots? To the bottom of the knee, above the knee, mid-thigh, how big? Also, note while I'm looking, I have noticed I do need to do one thing minor. I need to kind of grab this end of this foot and pull it down a little bit. Okay. The bottom of the knee and bottom of the knee down and laced at the back. Okay. The way we're going to handle that is first let's go back to here. So we got a bit more. We're going to draw on. We're going to straighten out the legs. Make sure we're perfectly vertical. We're going to select a big chunk all the way down to there. And then we're going to select this leg straight. Make sure it's all as close to straight as you can get it. And just below the knee, select a big chunk all the way down to there. Actually, it needs to be right about to there. Is that as high? Look at ignore the bottom of the knee. Is that as high as you want the boots to be? Oh, so it's more like, so about like where it is now then. Okay, it will, by laced in the back, do you mean it goes all the way around and is laced? Or do you mean it just has some connections? Because I have an idea on how we can handle this. What we're going to do is we're going to extract it at 0.01. extract, accept. Then we're going to go back here and we're going to delete the masking on the back half of the leg of each leg. Like that. Okay. And now these will come out at 0.02. Extract. I'll make that 0.025. And what we'll do is the back part of these will make kind of zigzaggy stretch marks like it's elastic. And the front part will make poofy and patty. Okay. Alright, here's what we're going to do then. Idea. I'm going to go ahead and Dynamesh this at 512. And then we're going to subdivide it there. Then we're going down to here. We're going to make sure this is set to lacy mouse off, 20 intensity. And we're going to make it a little bit bigger. And then there we go. We want to make it a little bit bigger. And it's laced up in the back. And then we can add in some detailing on the shins. Which reminds me, while I'm thinking about it, we need to go back to the mask. And what we're going to do is we're going to first start off from the top here. And come down. And then we're going to orb cracks. We're going to make it smaller. We're still going to draw that. That is our seam. Yep. Okay, frame out. Now, we're pretty much ready to start adding in details. There's not much else to do. Well, we need to refine the geometry on the hand. This hand, especially. So we go to inflate. We increase it to 11. We drop the draw size down, and then we start playing until we hit the size of the hand. And one small. There we go. And we're gonna. Yep. And then we're gonna draw in these are the tendons on the back of the hand. Usually they're not that visible, but we tend to have them there anyway because it helps us get the feeling of a finger. Okay, and knuckle there, smooth over. And then we're going to swoop over once, twice, swoop over, once, twice, swoop over, twice, and we're going to slash. We are making sure to turn off lazy mouse, drop this back down to about 13, and we're going to draw in the underside. Well, actually, we need to make it bigger, but we're going to draw in the underside of this finger here. And then we're just refining the separation between these fingers right now. The next thing we're doing is we're going to close off the rest of that hand because it doesn't need to be there. That's to help basically want to minimize some of the details here. Now we're going to make the mouse a good bit bigger. I'm going to very carefully build up the sides and the heel of the palm. And smooth it out a bit just because... Okay. Okay, now we're going to frame back out. And the hand's obviously a lot more realistic now. This hand needs to have a little bit of work done on the underside of it, like right along in here. Okay. Now, what kind of detailing do you want done to his mask? Oh, actually, there's one other thing we do need to make sure we do. Let me go ahead and do this real quick. I need to seam that off. And then slash just to kind of make sure we keep this. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to add on the actual seam on the outside. This is seam 16. Seam 16 needs to be stronger. This is overlapping cloth. And the direction depends, which side goes over the other depends on which direction you're drawing when you put it on. And that looks bad. Let's turn lazy mouse back on. This will help us look like it's actually an assembled garment and not his legs. And then okay, and there we have basically seams for the pants. We can do more, like adding on some more detailed seams. Are there any symbols you want that's part of this? Do you want like solar symbols, wings, bat wings, bones, any kind of symbol you want as part of your LuchadOrc? Because honestly, at this point, That's what this is. That's what this can do. That's what we do for here right now, because this is at the point of detailing. We've got our shin plates, we've got our elbow pads, we've got our belt, we've got our mask to detail. More than just the seam. We can add on trim around the eye, nose, and mouth holes and ear holes. We can add on fancy decorations around it. Not too fancy because we don't really have a lot of room to work with when you consider that's about the size of the line we're going to be drawing with. Okay, so flames, we can work with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the cracks 2, and we're going to start off. Go ahead and hide him because I don't want him in the way. We're going to start from down here. We're going to come around to there. Now, we're going to add on, I'm assuming, like, stylized flame. Okay. Now on the boots, we're going to put some on the front of these, right? Now what we're going to do, we're going to go back to that seam tool. We're going to shrink it, but we're keeping the intensity, actually make it a little bit more intense. And we're going to draw on, wrong way. We're going to draw on an outer frame seam, just to give it some trim and a little bit more visual interest. Okay. Then we'll draw on our flames on top of that. Sound good? Okay. That's our trim. And now we go back to orb cracks, and we're going to draw on our little flames. Okay, so and there we go. That's the flames on that one. They're not very detailed. They're not very fancy because we really don't have the room for them to be fancy and detailed. Not with the size of brush we have to work with. Now we frame out. And now the last place we have to put something decorative. We need to put something on that belt. Do you have any suggestions on what to put on that belt? Like something in the center and then like a couple rune plates on either side. Celtic knot style buckle. Okay. At this size, making detailed Celtic knot work doesn't work well. The closest I can come to work well would be the triskele. The, you know, the that thing. That's the closest thing I can think of that would work well at this size. Also, another thing that we can do, I'm going to go to the layer brush, change it to drag dot, and increase the size. There we go. Frame out. And now we're going to masking, inverse, deformation. I have to rotate this way. We're going to inflate there, and then inflate again. Let's go back down to masking and give it a blur. There. Now, I'm going to polish it by 1. And now we're going to inflate it. There we go. And a polish of 1 again. Frame out. That's the center buckle. We're going to carve our little symbol, our little Celtic symbol on there. Okay. Go back to orb cracks. What we're going to do is we're going to draw on the symbol. And then I'm going to invert it. And we're going to start off here. Oh, no. Oh. It didn't come out well. At this size, it's extremely hard to get something that's going to look good. What we could do instead is just actually put a rune symbol, a rune sigil in here. Would that... Yes, baby girl, go on. Go. What? Go. Good girl. Okay. Let's see. Let's go ahead. We're going to start with Odal. And bring it all the way down to here. Odal. And then we're going to put a thorn on this side. And a thorn on this side. And then down here, we're just going to put there. And then maybe put 2 little plates on the side here. So we're gonna kind of fill this area in. We're gonna come back and take care of it in just a second. And this will be just a plate. There will be nothing on it. Okay, so okay. We're gonna go ahead and just extract that out at 0.1. Okay, frame out. And that is our LuchadOrc so far. Is there anything else you want to add? And let's go ahead and show off his tusks and base. And let's give him a bit of a dynamic perspective. This is the current state of our half-orc LuchadOrc. Let's go ahead and make the helmet, the mask is, or the tusks. Yeah, there we go. This is our half-orc LuchadOrc so far. Is there anything else you want done with him? Well, what we would do then is we're going to go ahead. The last thing to add is we need to add some wrinkles to the armbands. And we're going to do that with the clay buildup tool. Make sure to turn off the lazy mouse. And what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of just and then smooth out the ends of these. And this one we're just going to give it a kind of a couple twitches near the elbow. And smooth out the ends. And then with the slash tool, drop it down to 27, drop it down to 10, and then we can see that we went here, here, and here, and then here, 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 just to give it some cloth-like wrinkles. Okay, then we're going over here. Once again, we're gonna follow the underside of these wrinkles. If this was a more regular cloth, we'd also be giving it a peak, but this is supposed to be padding, so we're not. Now we need to add in wrinkles at the crotch, back of the knees, ankles, and feet. And once again, we're just going to do this with the slash tool. We're just going to kind of now we're going to add, and we're going to kind of draw on the bottom third of each of these wrinkles. Gravity, you know. Back here, we're going to draw on. Oh. Just enough to really emphasize that these are pants. And now we're going to do the same thing to the boots. We're going to start off one deep groove below there. And then we're going to kind of and then add, we're going to just kind of bring them across here and here. Just to give it a bit of wrinkly. Once again, this will look nowhere near as dramatically huge in the final version. Okay, so we have our LuchadOrc. dynamically posed, articulated, with his mask and his championship belt, ready for all comers coming into the ring. Whee! Now the teeth, let's turn out that. The teeth need to be subdivided a little bit. And the base needs to be subdivided a little bit. Now, if you notice, there are nails in these boards, so. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going up to Subtool, and we're just going to start merging down until it's all in one single poly group. Well, subtool. We then go to Geometry, and we hit Dynamesh. And it's going to fuse this all into a single watertight shell. Okay, it's currently 5.05. Okay, I need to, yeah. I also need to turn off a mask. There we go. From 5.055 million polygons, that's it up here, it's now 1.321 million polygons. And now we need to make it able to be printed easily. So, this is too many polygons to print easily. We come down here, we're going to make him, well, I've got enough little grooves and detailings. Let's make him 50,000 points or 100,000 triangles. And I click this button under Decimation Master. It's the custom button that I have set to 50, which is 50,000 points. And 100,000 triangles. There's very little difference at all, and once it's printed, no human eye will be able to tell that it's polygons. At least not out of consumer level resin. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to export this as Max LuchadOrc. Okay, there he is. And just to show off a little bit, you can get a really good view of the whole thing. We're going to Movie. We're going to do a turntable real quick. There is your LuchadOrc. Press to change. And right as soon as I finish that, somebody wanted to come say hi. Well, say hi to our guest, Andrew here. Say hi to Andrew. Merp, 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 merp. Say hi to Andrew. Really? Yeah. This is Carlton. He was named that by a local animal shelter because he was found in a parking lot. Carlton. As if you couldn't tell, he's very wild and savage and doesn't like people very much. And he really hates to be picked up and held and cuddled. Why are you burying your head in my underarm, Furball? Bah! Yeah. So feral. Hey, Fuzzbutt, I'm gonna have to put you down on the floor now, okay? Yes, down on the floor. Alright, so. Let me show you a trick he has. Oh, he didn't do it this time. On down. A lot of times he'll go and he'll grab my shirt without touching my skin. He's got that kind of level of control in his claws. So anyway, that is our LuchadOrc. Honestly, I was expecting it to take a little bit longer than that because I was expecting things like the cape. But hey, when the belt covers the waist of the pants and the shin guards cover the top of the boots, there's a lot of sins are forgiven, so to speak. One thing to remember when making, if you're going to move in and follow along with what I've done in this and previous videos and do your own sculpting, one significant thing to realize is that if it doesn't change the silhouette, if it doesn't make something stick out, don't worry about making it a separate layer. Just detail the existing layer. When if I was wearing a bodysuit and I had from arms down, all I'd ever have to make is make a seam where the arm is by making that big arm piece and blending this in. And same thing over here, and then make a neck piece and blend this piece, this part of it in, so that all I've got is here and here. The rest of it's the base figure, because this isn't real cloth, and if we had 15 layers of cloth on the guy, instead of looking like 15 layers of cloth, it would look like 150. Details. I mean, looking at this side. This is quite a detailed figure. This is one of the Trollkin scattergunners. Now, even ignoring the fact that the pouch, grenades, and keg were separate pieces glued on, he's got quite a level of detail on him. But if we went in and measured some of the detail on this guy, like the how far out the breastplate sticks, well, that's what we got calipers for that. The breastplate actually sticks out almost a full millimeter. And it doesn't look like it when you first glance at it. Details can be a lot larger than you think and still look fine detailed. If you make the detail too fine, it won't have much effect on the silhouette. And it's like video games. It's easier to identify a figure by its silhouette than to go, okay, yeah, that is that guy. I mean, if the only difference between them is paint jobs, unless your paint jobs are brilliant and opposing, is that teal or is that sky blue? No, I mean, just from the silhouette, this is a Space Marine. If I saturated this thing so that all you could see was just a blob of blue in this outline, you could easily say that's a Space Marine with bolt, pistol, and bolter. It's unique. If I held this up as a blob of green, the way that it's hunched over, pointy ears, big old chin, crude shield and spear, this is an orc. Your silhouette is extraordinarily important. And, I mean, here. This is extremely hard to read because it's red, clear red resin. But you can easily see that it's got some kind of snouted head. It's wielding a hammer and a shield. And oh look, it's got a fin. So that might be some kind of reptile or dragonborn. Wearing a kilt, or long tunic, because that's easy to spot, with cuffed boots. It's got a bracer, possibly even heavy armor on the arms. And the Warhammer style is close to a more historically accurate style of hammer than a typical dwarf. To be exact, this is a sculpt that was done on a previous Patreon sculpt. And it is a Dragonborn warrior. It was also one of the last sculpts I did using an old technique for chainmail. Anyway. If it doesn't break the silhouette, it can be drawn on. It doesn't have to be extruded out. If it does break the silhouette, even just a little bit, it should. I mean, like those bracers on the forearms. There. The pads on the elbow, including the strings on the elbow pads, do. So they should. The detailing on the front of the shin pads doesn't. So it didn't. Some detail goes in. Let's see here. One of these. Pick up one of these bodies here. This doesn't have one, but some of these guys have medallions with runes on them. The runes are just pushed in. It's easier than trying to pull out the runes. Also, paint or sculpt with an eye towards people who paint. Are they not just print but paint? Are they the two most common most common techniques used, especially in tabletop gaming, are the wash, which you just paint on a color and then you use something like Nuln Oil or other pre-made washes, or even your own custom-made washes. It's blue-black armor wash I've made, the counterpoint to the brown-black of Nuln Oil. Brushed on top. Dry brushing. Is there an edge that will catch a dry brush easier than a rounded surface that'll kind of smear the dry brush? Then there's other techniques. You want some nice broader areas for things like two-brush blending or wet blending or loaded brush. You want some nice areas that you can play with color application that also give your eye a chance to rest. I mean, this orc right here. His face is finely detailed, his neck pieces. He's got some pretty good details on the back of his forearm. He's got some detailed boots. But his butt is rather smooth. His belly is rather smooth. And despite the pattern, the shield is for the most part smooth. It's a common, soft, repeating pattern. It's an area for the eyes to rest. Even these guys, as detailed as he is, he's got large, flat areas of armor. He's got areas of smooth skin. He's got areas of smooth leather. Now, not everything has to be extreme high detail everywhere. The viewer gets fatigue, and the painter gets fatigue. Meanwhile, it is 9:45. I'm going to go ahead and sign out. I'm still in the middle of getting together the paperwork for those people who have the commercial print license. So I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. I'm going to do my usual, stick up a hand here, count down from 5 to 1. And when I get to 1, I'm going to say something goofy and then go, and after I've done that, then, I log out and that's it. Well, I've got to see my finger doing that. The reason this is because both YouTube has lag, and I may have picked up some lag over the past hour and a half, hour and 45, whatever. Okay, so let's start with a 5, 4, 3, 2, and a 1. Why does it always have to be orcs? Why can't it ever be Scro?